The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.
Let's go! What's that? Gator! It's gonna be a football game tonight now. No doubt. It's gonna be a football game here. Okay. I done been here before. All right, let's go, baby.
Toss to White. He's in! Patriots win the Super Bowl! Brady has his fifth! What a comeback! Watson. Touchdown!
Hunter Renfro. Little man makes another enormous play. 1 second remaining.
Ladies and gentlemen, football to the max.
Your host, Sean Garmer, Gary Vaughan, and Randy Isbelle.
Hello and welcome to another Football to the Max. I am your host, Sean Garmer, and here with me, as always, Mr. Randy Isbelle.
Hey, how's it going?
And Mr. Gary Vaughan.
Would it be?
Would it be indeed? Well, time was not our friend on the Friday morning edition, so we're here on Tuesday doing what we were supposed to do on Friday with the team grades for post-draft 2017. There's a couple of news items as well, but most of the part we're just going to be doing those team grades. I mean, this is the part of the season where we get to just make ourselves look like idiots trying to predict how players are going to do when they may not even play this season at all.
Yeah. You know, it's true, and, you know, that's why in the off-season it's kind of fun to do these shows, too, because we get a chance to kind of make light of some things, just throw our opinions out there, kind of goof off, but at the same time report the news, and kind of fill people in on maybe some things that are really taking place. But on the other hand, you know, this is all just us just guesstimating on a lot of it, and it's just kind of fun to do.
How do you feel about all this, Randy? You like doing these things, or?
Yankees have the best record of baseball.
Oh, don't get me started on the Rangers sucking. Just
yeah. To be honest, as you guys said, this is pure speculation. Now we are in full-on off-season mode. It's okay. Now we've got through the draft. Now we wait till August. I mean, all the rest of the work is by the teams preparing for the season and us just trying to come up with something to talk about. So we'll find anything.
Exactly. This is kind of one of those fun things to just, hey, it's there and you can talk about it. Just even, you know, you find out sometimes that some players want to retire during this period. You know, you find out things about people buying pets, owners trademarking names. Like, seriously, Robert Kraft, you have to trademark unequivocally the sweetest, because only you guys have money just throw around like that. But, yeah, so let's actually talk about some things here. We did not talk about this the last time. I forgot about it. I'd actually put it in our title and everything. Randy Gregory fails another test while he's being suspended for the first 14 games of this upcoming season. He fails another one. At one point, does it become, this is a problem and something else needs to be done about it, and the Cowboys need to just cut their losses?
I'm pretty sure this became a problem before the last suspension. It has now gone well beyond the problem, and yeah, I don't think you will ever see him on a field again.
Yeah, and I'm right there with Randy on this because of the fact that the NFL is probably not going to change their mind on this policy when it comes to marijuana. I mean, the guy's not filling for steroids. He's not filling for any other substance but really marijuana, from our understanding. And, this kid obviously has issues. He has problems. And, marijuana is what he uses to self medicate. He said it. Even I think people around him have kind of talked about this before, that this is the best way for him to focus. And we hear that around this country. I mean, if you're listening and you're in the United States, you hear it all the time. If you're an overseas listener, you may not know as much about life in America, but within the states, I mean, there's this battle going on between marijuana users and the people holding it back. And there are now states that legalize marijuana, and more states are kind of coming around to doing this. So I think there's an argument for it, and I think that could be the case. But I just don't think Randy Gregory is going to have a career when that ever does happen in the NFL, when they legalize marijuana to be a used drug and not be a banned substance. And it's sad to see. This kid had a lot of uphill potential, but he couldn't get past his addiction, and it's just a sad day.
Yeah, it is kind of a sad day. As a guy that, Jerry Jones well knew with this, the troubles he had before he even entered the league. He admitted that this was a problem and he didn't care. They still took him. You're having to pay the price for it right now. But it's up to him. Obviously, you know what? Nobody can make you go to one of these places and get clean and all that kind of whatever if you really wanted to play in football. Now, on the other hand, the Cowboys owner is now trying to get marijuana legalized within the NFL system. It is legal, obviously, in some states, even recreationally. Roger Goodell's been on record saying he sees nothing good about marijuana for the players at all. In fact, it may make them worse for them in the long run. Obviously, there's medical things that say otherwise, but, Roger Goodell is a man that can be persuaded. So let's say Jerry Jones gets a bunch of the owners in on this. Do you think we see the NFL possibly go back on it?
Well, yeah, they'll go back on it just like some of these other states have as more research comes in. But I'm so tired of talking about this topic. If it's going to happen, it's going to happen. But until then, it's not legal. Stop doing it. And stop saying once you get hit for it and get suspended, it should be legal anyways. Well, it's not. So follow the rules until it is. Sorry.
Yeah, that's kind of how it is, right? It's like in real life jobs, not that this one isn't. And you got to remember that this is also a job. It's not just you get out there, go out there to play a game. And in the other job, you fail for marijuana unless you live in one of these states where it's legal. And also, I think even if it's legal, a workplace can still go in and go, no, we don't want you to be smoking that here. If you work here, you're not smoking it. If you fail, you're screwed.
Yeah, you're right. Exactly. And, I think that Randy Gregory did not take the situation serious. And there's other players out there that, have kind of had these mistakes, but not as kind of dumb as Randy Gregory has, because it's blatant that, he's obviously messed up. And I don't know that he even cares. I think mentally he's past that. I think mentally he thinks that, this is the only way he's going to be able to live a normal life when it comes to himself. And I think he's kind of found that chemical dependency on marijuana and maybe even mentally. So, it's interesting, and it's a topic that I think we'll debate probably more and more as time goes on. But right now, it's not something that I think is going to happen in the near future at all, so.
Yeah, I agree with you. So, Jay Cutler, now the next quarterback to go from playing on the field to being in the booth, as he will take a spot on Fox's commentary team. He'll be the Group 2 color commentator, I guess right underneath Troy Aikman and Joe Buck. He says this is permanent. He is not going back on the field. Number one, do you think it really is permanent? And are you looking forward to hearing him at all, or are you dreading it?
This guy, he could be interesting. He could be very good. I don't know. I know really it's kind of funny because he's not a real well-liked guy, at least, what we've heard in the locker room and other things like that. And then moving him up here and expecting the rest of the country to fall in love with him, you would hope that he'd have some semblance of a personality where people would, grow towards him and not away from him. So hopefully, if he has any of those traits, he's kind of taught him away and got himself in the mode ready to be a professional, but also be a likable guy.
Yeah, and I do think it's going to be permanent just for the fact that we're seeing a lot of teams go away from those veteran guys. We see that we have a few quarterbacks that still haven't found the job, and I don't think it's anything against them. They're just trying to go in a different direction, and they would like those veteran guys to come in and be backups, but I think Jay Cutler feels like he's better than being someone's backup. So why go get a paycheck for sitting on the bench when you can now start your next start of another career? So to me, I think it's smart for him. And if there's no team out there calling for, a starter right now, there's a few options. Some like to still be part of the game and hold a clipboard. Some want to move on. So all credit to Cutler for moving on.
But look at, let's say one of these quarterback, big injury. You still think Jay Cutler's not picking up that phone? And
no, they might pick up the phone and try him. And it's the same thing we see with coaches, with Bill Cowher and Jay Gruden. They get called every year. And it's up to them whether they feel like, they found a great spot or not. So I don't think I'm going to go in the booth until I see somebody go down and I'm going to be on the phone instantly. He's going to get calls. That's for certain. But to me, I think he let the free agency go through and, he didn't find a home. So he's like, all right, I guess this is it for me. And from the sounds of it, he's okay with it.
Yeah, Houston wouldn't even pick up the phone when he tried to call. So that tells you something. This is funny because every time you hear him in a press conference, he sounds like he doesn't give a shit. So maybe he can just do that when he's on the commentary. Just act like he just doesn't care about being there instead. But maybe we'll learn something from Jay Cutler. Maybe he will be this great instructor. Calling commentary we didn't know that he was previously. Now, Cowboys already having to deal with Jalen Smith and what his workout's going to be and everything else. He's not going to be doing a whole lot in minicamp, but they're hoping, the rehab gets better by the time training camp comes. You think he plays this year? Or you think the nerve's still going to be a problem where he doesn't?
I think, they're going to, of course, get him tested out here in mini camps and training camp and all that. I think if it at least shows that he can get on the field and run and, get himself prepared to do battle in the trenches, I think that they will allow him to play this year. And I could totally see it happening. But, it's not going to be probably as good as we all want to see right away because, this guy has been away from football for an entire year. And has had to, deal with this situation that it's really tough to overcome. So I think you'll probably will see him play, but, who knows what will happen from there.
You think he plays, Randy?
It's tough to say. It depends on how fast he heals. My hope is he doesn't play before he's ready. Either way.
Yeah, the important part is that they make sure they test it and
and by being ready, I mean his body is ready, because I'm sure he will be ready instantly. Again, as a baseball fan, Noah Syndergaard's like, nah, I don't need an MRI, and then he tore something else. So I hope he listens to his doctors and understand that they're looking out for the best interest of him. Obviously, they work for the team. The team wants him on the field, so they have the best interest for him and the team in mind, but make sure his body is physically ready to go before he jumps out on the field again.
So an interesting thing from NFL research that I saw today, since 2000, if you draft a running back in the top 5, you automatically get 4 more wins the next season. That is the highest of any position that gets drafted in that spot. Right behind it at 3.8 wins is guard and tackle. And then after that at 3.1, so barely over 3 wins, quarterbacks. That surprise you? That you draft a running back in the top 5, automatically 4 wins next season?
No, honestly, I don't, because I think just for the fact that if you are drafting in the top 5, you're not very good. If you're drafting in the top 5 and you're not drafting a quarterback, you probably already had a quarterback that you drafted the year before or the year before that, and they're going to improve. And the running back has the quickest vault into the NFL. They don't have that much to learn. I mean, obviously, the size and the speed is going to get to them, but they can contribute the most, the fastest, out of all of the other positions. Wide receivers, too, but they only have so much they can affect on each play. Obviously, the running back's going to touch the ball a lot more. So, honestly, it doesn't really surprise me that much. I still don't think you take a running back in the top 5, though.
I think it's interesting, and I can understand maybe, history and statistics have told you this. I don't know. I'm not sold on it per se, just because, the stats say it, but I think it's, one of those where things have kind of fallen the right way for the running back in these situations. I think, it's very selective, though, and it's kind of hard just to say yes because the trend is going this way. This is it. This is the only reason it is what it is. I think there's other components that we can't really read in with those statistics and really understand why this happened for those players.
And this went from how long?
2000.
So I'm just looking at some of these names. I mean, I guess Jamal Lewis of the Ravens, I think they turned things around. LT to the Chargers, did that really turn them into a juggernaut? I mean, he's a great player.
They were consistent every year.
Yeah, but did they make the playoff? I mean, did they make the Super Bowl ever?
No, but I don't think that's what that's saying.
I know, but Ronnie, well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yes, you're going to get a quick improvement, but long term, how are you going to go? Here you go, 2005, Ronnie Brown to the Dolphins, Cedric Benson to the Bears, Cadillac Williams to the Buccaneers. How did that work out long term?
None of them did anything.
Reggie Bush to the Saints. McFadden was a good player, but the Raiders weren't that great until just recently. That was 2008.
Kept getting hurt.
Well, yeah, I'm just saying. Again, a boost. Or the best one, 2012, the Cleveland Browns select Trent Richardson.
Woo!
And he had one good year. So that's what I'm saying. Yes, it's going to be a boost, but if you don't do things around them, or you're not a team like the Dallas Cowboys last year where they took Ezekiel Elliott and they had a team around them that was ready to go. I mean, they had all the injuries in 2015. He was that perfect piece that really helped them vault, and then obviously people stayed healthy. And let's not forget Prescott was a big part of it too. But again, I think it's a good boost, but you then have to do things around it.
Yeah, certainly. Agree with you there. It's it doesn't always work, stats. Those are the things they don't tell you, right? They're leaving those parts out, that not everybody was a winner with that research. But I think last this year showed that obviously you get a guy that's awesome like Zeke, it's going to turn out well. And it's not just a running back. It requires the offensive line. It requires the quarterback, all that. So.
And I will say, of course, we focus on the top 5. And obviously when we do our draft grades, we're guessing. Just like a lot of the teams were. I was just scrolling through because you had me interested. And 1995 pops up because the Bengals had the very first pick and they drafted a running back. Could either of you name the running back that went number 1 overall in 95?
Kajana Carter.
Exactly. But was he any good?
He was good, actually. Kajana Carter was good.
How about you go down to the 74th pick with Curtis Martin? I think he was a bit
No,
better.
obviously, Curtis Martin.
Or how about you go down to the 6th round where the Broncos took Terrell Davis? That's what I'm saying. We're going to look at it and go, oh, he was a top 5 pick, and we're going to speculate this or that, and none of us are going to know these guys in the later rounds until a few years, and then they become something. So our grades that we're going to bring up here are pure speculation, just like the draft picks are pure speculation, and they're going to be a lot of hits and misses, and you won't know for the next 5 years, but it's fun to do.
Yeah, it is. This is going to be a fun time because we'll look back on this in 2-3 years on this draft and go, man, who was really the winners and losers here? Did they end up playing? Did they not? Have they yet? Let's see how that goes. So, without further ado, I think we can get into this now. Our official team grades we're going to go by division here. So let's start off in we've already taught them about enough. That way we can just get it over with. The NFC East, Gary, let's start with the Giants, Cowboys, Redskins, and Eagles. You got to rank them here. You got to rank these. Who had the best draft? Who had the worst draft? What do you think?
Let's run through this real quick and get through, kind of what I think about each of these teams. We'll start out and talk about a team that I think a lot of people were kind of interested in, and the Dallas Cowboys, only because they lost so many players in free agency, and people were really questioning, could they rebuild? And they went ahead and drafted in the first round Taco Charlton. They went and grabbed a couple, corners here. They got a Woozy, and they also jumped in and got a guy named Jordan Lewis, who a lot of people actually felt like had some first-round capabilities. He just, had some controversy with an alleged, violence case. So we'll leave that to whatever happens. But they're almost positive it was nothing. And of course, a guy like Ryan Switzer, who they look to be a special teams ace, and Xavier Woods, a safety. They traded the Jets up to get up there and take him. So they had those guys, and of course they kind of filled their roster in with some other guys. Honestly, unless you want to go to this whole list, I can. But the rest of those guys on the list are kind of guys who are going to see what they can do, really just to see what they can get a look at. And so that's what's going to be interesting. I think overall Dallas did a pretty good job on at least meeting their needs. Now, quality, I don't know. I think this may be a quantity over quality, or it could be vice versa. This is very hard to tell. When I first looked at this draft, I gave it a C+. I'm going to sit here and I'll say I'm just going to give it a B. I think that, it's right about there. It's about mid-range. They did just enough, but really they didn't go over and above to get some solid talent that you knew day one was going to step in and help. You got the New York Giants, who had an interesting draft themselves. They went and drafted tight end Evan Ingram first round, and he's a great tight end, has a lot of ability. We look at him and say, wow, this offense just got scarier. They also drafted a guy to kind of come in and replace a very important part of defensive tackle. So they come in and get Dalvin Tomlinson, who is a great player. He'll be, a day one starter if they really want him to come in there and do that. And they also went themselves and got them a quarterback to kind of make sure that when Eli decides he's done, they can grab him and put him in place, and that's Davis Webb. And of course, they also drafted some other offensive positions like running back when they went and got Wayne Gilman and some other interesting positions they kind of filled out their draft. The one thing I'll say is they only drafted one offensive player when it comes to the offensive line, and that was Adam Bonotti, if I can say that way. But this is the biggest problem I had with them. They really need to look at offensive line talent. Sure, this year was not deep in offensive line talent and not really quality, but I think they really needed that help. Getting a tight end is great, helping your team when it comes to offense. I get it, but you got to keep Eli upright. You got to protect him. I don't know that I'm really sold that they did that. I think that they did okay, but just something really lacked in their draft. I mean, your third pick was a quarterback that's good, but really probably more of a project. So you got a solid C for me for the Giants. I don't think that they really overly did a great job. The Philadelphia Eagles come in and they draft first of all defensive end Derek Barnett, and I think that was a great pick. They really could use some help on that defensive line. They also come in and grab a corner by Sidney Jones, who will be a great addition to their secondary, along with another corner in Douglas, and I think he's a great player to also add to that secondary. And so they already worked their way to the defense. So they went on and moved and got some help at running back when they went and got Mac Hollins, who he's a great receiver. I think he'll do them some good. And they got a running back and Donnell Pumphrey, who also helped them in special teams. So they really worked on trying to help their offensive out a lot here too. You can't also shortchange them. They went and got West Virginia's Shelton Gibson, who will also help them. Really speedy kind of guy. I think, really, they went and tried to find guys that could help Wentz to really give him some great targets. Philadelphia has kind of lacked on that side of the ball a lot. And so now Wentz will have some more talent around him. They've got a decent offensive line there in Philadelphia. So I also gave them a B. I really think they did a good job. Defensively, I think they probably could have helped themselves out a little bit more. The Philadelphia Eagles were not great on defense last year. Let's be honest with everyone. So I think they really would have got a higher grade from me. They probably would have beat the Cowboys if they would have got better picks at defense. They only got Barnett, which is great, but not enough to completely change that defense. And then we'll move on to the Washington Redskins, who went ahead and they went and helped themselves at defensive end with Jonathan Allen being their first pick, great player, along with linebacker Ryan Anderson. And I think those two guys are great additions to that defense. They will help them and probably be, could be day one starters for sure. Allen will be, I think, for, most of the year, if not all of it. You also got some cornerback help from them. They also went and got Muru, and they also went and got themselves another running back, which I think they're really looking for somebody to kind of replace Matt Jones. Of course, that project has not worked out as great as I think they hoped, and they went and got Perrine. And I think Perrine could be a great player for them too. So looking at that. And they also added some more defensive help also down here. They also got safety Monte Nicholson, another great player. But, really, honestly, they just kind of helped themselves out and kind of filled out the rest of this with some, prospects. And I think that, though, they did some of this stuff. I think they did a pretty good job. I'm not really sold that they were, the best in this division. But I think that they did enough to kind of help restock that defense with Jonathan Allen. They really got a 1-2 punch there. And, of course, getting themselves some big needed help on the rest of this defense, which I gave them a B+. I wasn't sure that I would give them a higher grade than anybody else, but I really like the fact that they addressed their defense in a very important way, and I think that they really needed that help, and good job on them. So it's kind of funny. Out of the NFC East, the one team I did not expect to do the best, I kind of gave them a little bit more than the rest, Washington.
All right, anything you want to comment on here, Randy, before we...
No, actually, it was pretty close to him. I think at Philadelphia, they had a Washington, but other than that, I was right with Gary.
That's kind of what I had too. I thought it was the Eagles. ahead of Washington by a little bit. And then, Cowboys and Giants down at the bottom. But, I really like what the Eagles did. Just they went defense for the first three. Pumphrey could wind up being a steal where they got him, and even Nate Jerry at safety for Nebraska. He was actually pretty good from what I got to see in Nebraska last year. So talk about getting guys pretty low in those rounds. Good grads by the Eagles, and watch out for Jeremy Sprinkle from. Gotta give shout outs to my Arkansas guys when I can.
Oh yeah.
Not a lot of them get drafted. So. Well, Randy, what do you think about your Jets and the rest of the AFC East?
Do I have to? Okay, we'll start at the bottom, and that's, of course, my New York Jets, who completely baffled me the entire draft. I mean, they get Jamal Adams, who, just falls right into their lap. Of course, you're going to go for it. I knew they should go secondary there, and they do. And I love that pick. I think that's great. But then you follow it up in the second round with Marcus May, another safety. I don't understand. It might work out. I mean, listen, you're trying to completely rebuild the secondary and continue. You have a great defensive line there in New York, but it just doesn't make sense to go safety there, especially when all you do after that is trade down and trade down and trade down and trade down, and then decide, we'll draft 3 picks in the 6th round and a couple in the 5th, and we'll just get a couple weird pieces. And again, who knows? They could completely work out. Jordan Leggett is a good tight end from Clemson. And I will say they did not draft a quarterback, so that's a plus. But I'm still giving them probably about a C out of that grade. And it probably would have been worse if they drafted a quarterback, to be honest. And then you get to the Buffalo Bills, who it's tough to say what they do. They get 3 picks in the first 2 rounds, and then you don't see him again until the 5th. Tre'Davious White is a decent pick. Zay Jones, they need the wide receiver help, and they get him early in the 2nd. But other than that, it's tough to say because they only end up with 6 total selections here, and a lot of those were late. Nathan Peterman, a late cornerback, is just kind of a shot in the dark. Maybe he works out, maybe not. So I'll give him a C+, just for there's not much there. And you get New England, again, I guess if you look at all of the trades they made in the offseason, where they used a lot of their draft picks, how can you not give them an A+? Because, you get Brandon Cooks and Dwayne Allen and Coney Ely. You win. But to me, I still give them a B just for the fact that they only had 4 picks, and they went out, and it was all line. A couple of defensive linemen, a couple offensive linemen. It's just all the Patriots need. It's another season for New England. You just know that they're going to make the right picks because that's what they do. But I really liked what Miami did. And what Miami did was go mostly defense. They're starting to get some of those offensive weapons. Say what you will about Tannehill and whether he can lead a team or not, but you really need, if you're going to beat New England, you got to beat them with your defense. So that's what they did. They went out their first 3 picks for defense. Actually, 5 of their first 6 were defensive picks. So I like what they did. They focused on their needs. Nothing splashy. But they got the job done, I think. So we'll see what happens from there. But to me, Miami had the best draft in the AFC East.
Anything to add there, Gary?
No, I totally agree. Miami really did a good job. It looks like they did their homework and really worked on that defense, which was very important for them. And I think that will give them a little bit more of an opportunity next year. And you mentioned New England. My goodness, they had 1, 2, 3, 4 picks at all because they just keep trading those things away. But still, at that same point, I think they made some at least decent picks here. They're not anything that is going to blow you out of the water. But what's important here is they're very strategic. So I agree with Randy though for the most part. I think his grades are pretty spot on for me.
Yeah, for me, I think Miami certainly made the most of what they had. I I give New England for only having 4 picks. I love the Dietrich Wise pick, of course. Arkansas guy again. But I do think Derek Rivers could be a defensive end to watch out for. This Miami just getting Charles Harris where they did. I'm pretty sure they wanted the Florida guy, but you can't go wrong with Charles Harris there. Tankersley could, out of Clemson, watch out for him. It's the Miami's picks are going to be interesting to see how they pan out. I like what Buffalo did too.
Yeah, I was going to say because I'm just looking at the Jets draft again, and I just realized that the head scout of the Jets has to have SEC network because that's all they did was draft a bunch of SEC players.
Yeah, LSU, Florida, Alabama,
get a different
and then
channel,
Ole Miss at the end. I mean, the 3 guys they drafted are going to be good if Marcus May pans out. But I agree with you. Like, it's either going to turn out really dumb to draft Adams and Marcus May, or it's going to turn out great if you could move May to corner or something, or you just shore up both safety spots and see what you can do at corner. I don't know, but that's one of those things. The Jets are so bare. I guess it almost wouldn't have mattered who they took as long as they didn't take a quarterback.
You're right.
I'm saying I'm not wrong. The Tre'Davious White, Zay Jones picks by Buffalo. I like those. Don't know that I can say much else about what they did there. But all right, staying in the AFC for me, in the North. We talked about what to make of the Ravens draft when we talked about it initially, but I think our friend Robert has to be happy with what they did. Marlon Humphrey, I think, wasn't a guy a lot of people were thinking about, but he was a very good corner for Alabama. Tyrus Bowser was another kind of underrated guy nobody's talking about. Chris Wormley, I think, could wind up being the best of the bunch there when you're looking to replace defensive ends. Even going further to Siragusa down there at guard. Don't know if he's going to just play right away, but eventually he could work out. But definitely the first 3 or 4 picks for the Ravens. I got to have them up there. I'm going to put the Ravens ultimately at second with a B+. I'm also going to give the Browns a B+, but I'm going to have them first. Just what they did in the first round was masterful. We talked about that. Look, I know a lot of people are going to say that Sean Kaiser was a wasted pick or whatever, but I really think he could turn out to be something. He's already getting comparisons to Big Ben because of his size and the way he can move, and they may not be wrong. I like the Roderick Johnson pick out of Florida State, and Caleb Brantley could wind up being a steal there at freaking 6th round. Amazing grab for him. I mean, I don't know about grabbing a kicker or whatever, but it's round 7. What the hell? Who cares? But really, the first 4 picks by the Browns are pretty damn good. Even Ogunjobi, who knows? He could be decent as well. So, I like what Cleveland did. Go ahead.
He's only going to be really good to make us say his name on the podcast every week.
Right? Yeah, you need to do that. The Steelers have a Juju Smith-Schuster that they're going to want us to keep saying his name over and over. I like what the North. I think the only team that I'm not too sold on what they did, the Bengals. I put them in 4th at a C maybe. Joe Mixon could wind up being great, and that could wind up putting this whole draft into a different perspective. I think if he winds up being great, John Ross, same thing. But those are guys that, who knows? Is the character issues going to pan out? John Ross could, I don't know. I do like Carl Lawson, though, from Auburn. I love that pick for the Bengals. I don't know about, some of these I wasn't too much of a big fan of. I liked what Pittsburgh did, though, taking T.J. Watt. That's such a Pittsburgh move. Take Josh Dobbs in the 4th round. Who knows if he winds up actually succeeding Big Ben or not. But, hey, they picked a good guy to try and do it. I like the James Conner pick. He could be a guy that, seriously, you're not really talking about him. Right now you're going, oh, this is the guy you're talking about because of the illness and all that stuff. He's actually a damn good running back. Okay, so if he plays at all, and he can actually catch passes on the backfield, he could, you got Lev Bell there, but Lev Bell, guess what happens with Lev Bell a lot? He gets hurt. So James Conner could wind up playing. And Cameron Sutton is a good pickup from Tennessee as well. So I think, for me, Steelers, Browns, Ravens, all really close. B plus, and B plus, and I got the Bengals down there at the C in 4th. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I'm with you. As far as Baltimore, Cleveland, and Pittsburgh being close, I think Cleveland, as you said, made the more splashy moves, while Baltimore really continued to just work on their new setup. They want to be a big defensive team. They went defense last year. They went defense again here as they tried to really load up that side of the ball. They feel like they don't have to be sexy on offense, but the offensive side of the ball does well enough. So now get that big stopping defense and play the way that the Ravens did in the early 2000s and winning Super Bowls that way. So I like what they're doing there. Again, Cleveland, so many moves that they had to make. Some of the trades that they have, so they have even more picks next year. It was amazing. Again, I loved all 3 of their first-round picks. I love the Kaiser pick. It's your 4th pick in the draft, and you got a great quarterback who, if he doesn't pan out, you're used to that in Cleveland, but at least he's not weighed down with a first-round pick. And then with Pittsburgh, I thought they were going to take their possible replacement for Big Ben in the 1st round. They wait till the 4th round, and they still get one hell of a quarterback in Dobbs. And as you said, they filled in some other needs here, both in the wide receiver position, which we've seen other than Antonio Brown, who has really been that great over there. We've been waiting for that number 2 to emerge.
Well,
we'll
have to see
dangerous.
Martavis Bryant because he's coming back from that long layoff.
Well, I agree, but will he stay healthy? Will he stay out of trouble? Yet to be seen. So still looking for that kind of stuff. And I'm not a big fan of the Cincinnati draft. John Ross with the 9th pick. I know a couple wide receivers had already gone off the board, and they got nervous and knew that they had to get somebody with all of their wide receivers that left in free agency a couple years ago. But I felt like that was a reach there. I hate the Joe Mixon pick, but we talked about that on the last podcast. I just think they completely missed on theirs. But I agree, the other 3 teams all got their needs and are in that B to B plus range.
Yeah, and looking at this whole thing, you guys mentioned Cleveland being pretty flashy. I agree, but hey, that's what the opportunity they had here. But I will say Pittsburgh to me really solidified some really important positions and really worked on getting the future together for themselves. So that's I wanted to give a nod to them and how good they did.
All right, so I'm gonna keep things going now. Moving on to the NFC North. I'm going to. This is another one where I think you're really close with the top 3 teams, and then you have an obvious 4th pick, which I can already tell you. The obvious 4th pick of the Chicago Bears with their ridiculous trade for Mitch Trubisky, and I think we talked about that enough during the 1st round podcast, honestly. But the Eddie Jackson pick, it was great that you got him in the 4th round. I don't know about taking the tight end. I certainly don't know about taking the running back either. But it is what it is. I guess there's a chance, you need somebody in case Jordan Howard gets hurt, but you needed some defensive help, especially in the secondary, and you only got one guy. When there's such a great secondary class and all that, you decided to trade all these picks away for a quarterback. Hope he works out for you there, Chicago. I think For me, I'm going to give the Packers a slight edge over the Lions for first. This is another one where it's going to be kind of the B plus, and the other two get Bs. For me, I really like the Kevin King pick for the Packers after they traded out of the first round. Great haul by them. Josh Jones, another guy that could work out. Montravius Adams, I think, could be one of the guys we're talking about from this draft. I think they nailed quite a few after that. The D'Angelo Yancey from Purdue, Jamal Williams. I like those. Don't know if any of those guys are going to play running back. Who knows? But I think the Packers did well with their choices, trading out when they had to, and then taking guys when they needed to. Lions went defense for a lot of their picks, and I think it was smart. Gerard Davis, Tabor, both from Florida. Both are going to be big time for the Lions, I think. The Jalen Maben from Tennessee, watched him quite a lot. I like his choice. Of course, taking another Arkansas guy, not going to go wrong. Don't know if Brad Kaya ever sees the field, but it's a good guy to learn behind Matt Stafford. Hey, even Pat O'Connor from Eastern Michigan, who knows if we're talking about him. And Minnesota Vikings, I think definitely you got a big one in Dalvin Cook to replace, losing Peterson. Don't know if Murray's going to be that answer, so go ahead and get another guy. I like the Jaleel Johnson pick. I don't know that I like too much more from what they got. But I still think overall at the top, what you did, of course, getting lineman help, which they definitely needed, considering linemen for Minnesota was a huge problem last year. I think putting it together, they did better than the atrociousness of the Bears. So, yeah. Packers, Lions, Vikings, and Bears for me.
Yeah, I think you're pretty right on to that. And I like, what Detroit did here. That was something that really, kind of showed me that they really, had a better draft than years past. And the Packers, of course, making some good decisions. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah, same thing. I'll just touch on Green Bay. I loved Kevin King. Sean, you and I had talked about how I really wanted him to fall to the Jets in the second round. I like that they went for secondary in the second round with him and Josh Jones. That was their biggest need. They went for it. Running back was the next need, and they don't go high for one, but they pick 3 running backs late. You never know, one might work, maybe 2 work out, but they didn't really take a risk on anything, and you just never know. So I loved what they did, and Chicago just, what a complete joke. I mean, we talked about the trade. We won't get into it, but you are a bad football team. That's why you had the number 3 pick. You have a lot of needs. So what do? You trade all of your picks to get one possible need and then end up with just 5 picks. It's a mess. It's awful.
Yeah, totally. Totally a mess on that point. Gary, you got the NFC West here. Are you going to make our dear friend Rochelle angry with where you're...
Oh, man.
Or the AFC West, I'm sorry. Make sure I said that right.
We'll see here, won't we? I will talk about her team. Let me start by talking about the Denver Broncos. They're a team that I think everybody was kind of looking at to see what they were going to do because, there were so many questions. Everybody points to offensive line. That was one of the biggest issues they had, and were they going to go and do anything splashy themselves? And no, they actually do something that we kind of all predicted. Got their offensive tackle, so they went out and got Garrett Bowles, which is actually a smart idea. They really need to work on that position. Plus, they went out and picked them defensive end, DeMarcus Walker, and that was something that once again they need to kind of start working back on their defense as well. They did that. Plus, going out and picking up a kid like Carlos Henderson, who also kind of helps them out too. along with Brandon Langley, so at corner. So they really did work on building up a little bit of their defense, adding some offensive players, sprinkling in some things going on there. Not exactly the strongest draft, I think, for them. I think that they kind of got stuck in a position where they really weren't sold on some of their guys, but then the guys that fell to them, they felt, well, we'll go with it. We need that position. I got to give them a B minus. I see maybe a little too low for me. I don't think they did great, but I think a B minus is where I stand on them. And I look at Kansas City, a team that really, kind of surprised me and, what they did here. Of course, Randy hit this right on the head, and I could give him all the props for it. They went out and got themselves quarterback Patrick Mahomes. And this is a guy that's going to sit behind Alex Smith and really work hard at his craft and really train. And, I think that this is a good move. I mean, they could have went a lot of different ways, but they're working for their future here. And what a, smart decision for them. Plus, they went out and got themselves, another great defensive end. And they got, I can't even say his last name, Capricorn or anyway. I don't know if you guys are looking at this. Hassignon, thank you. I cannot even say that. It's better than being Japanese. I'd really murder it. Plus, they went and got Kareem Hunt out there, the running back who is widely known as really great and a talent that will really help them also. So they, I think really when you look at Kansas City, they had some wide receiver talent. They had another linebacker here, a safety. I mean, they really honestly didn't do too bad themselves here. I got to give them a solid B as well. I don't think that they overly did it. I think their first pick was probably the most impactful pick that they had, but still, I don't think that they did a bad draft this year. And I for sure want to talk about Rochelle's Los Angeles Chargers, but before I get into them and whatever grade I give them, I want to talk about the Oakland Raiders. And the Oakland Raiders actually went out and did the thing that people were kind of surprised by, and they went out and got themselves that guy that was, charged with rape. No, he wasn't. It was alleged. Trust me, people were already charging this guy before he even got into play. And no, it was all alleged. So they went ahead and took the risk. And Garyon Connolly actually is going to be starting for them this year. Plus, they went out and got Obi Malafante or Fafalane safety, this is an interesting safety for me because I think he's a guy that I think they but man, I don't know. I kind of worry about him. Plus, they went also and got some more help and defensive tackle with Eddie Verados here, as well as some other great players that I think could help them on the offensive line. Plus, got themselves another linebacker. I think really once again some potential players here. I don't know that I love this, especially their second pick. I don't think was the strongest. But, at least they did go out there and get themselves Garyon Connolly. For me, looking at this, I got to give them a B as well. Nothing overly great, but I think that they did a decent job in drafting, adding more depth to the defense they really needed there, and plus a very important safety. Now let's jump into Los Angeles and the Chargers. And this is a team that I have to say made some interesting picks. They went out and got wide receiver Mike Williams in the first round. And that is really interesting to give Phillip Rivers another weapon to go ahead and throw to. Plus, they also added the Forrest Lamp, a great offensive lineman that came out of the draft this year. He's going to be a little bit of work, but he's still one of the best that came out. So you got to give him credit for that, helping their offensive line. Plus, jumping in the next round and 3 and picking up another one in Freeney. So Feeney is going to really help them as well. I think he's a great talent. Plus, they went out and did pick up a safety, which they desperately needed, in Rashawn Jenkins. And this guy is an underrated guy, I think, too. Some people loved him. Some people really didn't care for him. So, that's a shock, too, that some people were underestimating him. Plus, they went out and got them Desmond King. And, wow, what a player. And I was kind of surprised by this, too. And they, of course, added some more offensive line depth in this. So, but man, I really have to give it to the Chargers. I gave the Chargers an A. I really did like their draft. I think they matched up and just fell in the right place for a lot of guys.
made some good decisions. I can't say enough. I think they did a great job here. So, Rochelle, you should love me because I love the draft that the Chargers had this year.
Well,
have either of you heard if Mike Williams strained his shoulder holding up the Chargers jersey yet or not? Because that's been the problem with the Chargers is every wide receiver they gets hurt left and right. Love that pick. I love the 2 offensive linemen. You could definitely tell that they know Phillip Rivers is getting a little long in the tooth, so they're trying to get him as many weapons as they can to try to give him that one big push. Try to give him any chance that they can to get a Super Bowl ring. The AFC is mostly wide open other than New England. So, why not go for it? I love their draft. I'm with you with Oakland. I thought they were pretty solid as well. Focusing on the defensive side as that offense is pretty stacked as it is. Kansas City, who is already pretty set, took some chances with Mahomes for the future. And I think that's what they mostly did was look towards the future with that draft. And I like that. And Denver was fine. I mean, we'll see how some of their pieces fit. It's never sexy when you go offensive lineman, defensive lineman in your first 2 picks. So everyone will go, eh. So they were going for mostly, their needs. And I think everybody in this division improved in the draft this year.
Yeah. I definitely have the Chargers number 1 for me. I think what they did was pretty impressive. Definitely a draft. I think even getting Rashawn Jenkins from Miami, he played pretty damn well over there for them. And Desmond King from Iowa, I like that pick too. Oakland, yeah, I don't even know if I like Conley going to them because of the problems, even though that the whole thing's bogus, but still at that point. It's like there's other guys on the field that don't have it. Why? The Chiefs, I think going to get Mahomes was smart. It might take him a little time, but he's got time to deal with it with Alex Smith. And, Broncos, for me, I don't think any of these drafts are bad. I think, you don't go lower than a B on anybody, but just little weird sometimes decisions for the Broncos. So, after this, we got Randy with the AFC South. What do you think here?
Yeah, I think this was another division where you can't really look at a team and go, they totally screwed up. And you start with Houston, of course, they get the sexy pick with Deshaun Watson, or they moved up, get him at number 12. You need a quarterback. They completely screwed things up with the great mighty Pooh, who is no longer with them. Rest in peace, great mighty Pooh. No one will miss you.
He could still play for the Browns, so don't.
No, he's getting cut. Knock it off. Don't do that. Don't do that to the Browns, even though it is the perfect place for the great mighty Pooh. We're talking about the Texans, who, listen, they were extremely close, to even taking out the Patriots in the playoff game if they just had a quarterback. I do think Watson's going to start the earliest out of all of these quarterbacks. I don't know if it's week 1 or not, as they do think that Tom Travers will go week 1, but we'll see how training camp and preseason and stuff goes. But he's a big game quarterback. Let's see if it translates to the NFL. Zach Cunningham's a fine pick, and the rest are just trying to bolster the rest of their roster. I can't really complain about anything. I like what the Colts did, going mostly defense, again, with a team that, has a great offense, and they really tried to nail down the offensive line with the last draft, and we'll see how that improves. Now they focus on the defensive side here with Hooker and Quincy Wilson. Fine with all of that. Tennessee had a ton of picks early on and really tried to give Mariota as many weapons as possible. Corey Davis, which was a surprise. I thought Mike Williams was going to go there, but Davis out of Western Michigan there. You got Tywan Taylor, another wide receiver. You get a tight end out of FIU. It looked like Tennessee really was looking at Division II teams and looking for that Jerry Rice, I guess is the best way to put it. That unknown name out of there. They get an offensive lineman from Tennessee, Chattanooga. I'm totally going to break down his game because I watched a lot of games from Tennessee, Chattanooga.
Yeah.
But I like that they were getting weapons for Mariota. They continue to take those steps forward, and I like that. And listen, Jacksonville was my team last year. It went down in flames quickly. And I'm not going to say that they're my team again next year where I think they're going to take that next step, but I loved everything they did in this draft. They need that big bruiser back with Leonard Fournette. If he can stay healthy, he could be like an Ezekiel Elliott and kind of take control of games, get some more time for Bortles, take some pressure off of him. Or like Cam Robinson in the second round. A lot of people thought he was a first-round talent. And they got, to me, the steal of the draft with D.D. Westbrook in the fourth round. He was one of the finalists for the Heisman. He's a great wide receiver. He's perfect in the flex. And you have, the two Allens on the outside, so he's going to fit perfectly there. They have addressed their defense over the last 2 years, and you think that they're going to continue to step forward. So now you got the weapons for Bortles, and this is the do or die year for him. I thought they had the best draft in the South, but like the AFC West, the lowest grade is a B. So I think everyone did fine.
Yeah, I'm with you on that too. And looking at Jacksonville, I'm just really excited about seeing what Fournette does and seeing how they intermingle him and mix him up with the rest of the offense, and seeing if that does allow them to get back to gunslinging again, because people have to respect the running game. As of late, they haven't had to do that, so that's what's so cool about that situation. And I'm really curious about some of the things like you said with the Titans, because Mariota, with that extra help, could they move up and start moving and doing some better things? So it's, those two teams really interested me.
Yeah, Jacksonville had a wonderful draft. Even Dwayne Smoot could be a really good defensive end there, picked up in the third round, that Randy didn't mention. I even like Jalen Myrick from Minnesota down there in the 7th round. So they got a complete draft of guys they need. They cover defense. D.D. Westbrook, agree with Randy, could be a huge, huge grab for them there in that 4th round. Titans went really smart too. I like what the Colts did, making sure they cover some of that defense. And the Texans made good moves. Don't sleep on Donta Foreman. Do not sleep on him. He could be pretty decent out of Texas. Yeah, no, but the worst grades would be, agree with Randy, all the way up to A's for Jacksonville and Tennessee. So we only got 2 divisions left. NFC West here. I don't think you can really argue that the Los Angeles Rams once again did not help themselves that much here. I get trying to give I think Cooper Kupp is going to be terrific if Jared Goff can get him the ball. That is great grab in the 3rd round. I don't know about drafting another tight end when you already had a pretty decent one. You could have used that for something else. I just wasn't too big of a fan. I like the John Johnson pick, but some of the other ones for the Rams, I wasn't too big a fan of what they did. The Seahawks basically just kept trading for a large part. But of the people that they did draft, I like what they did here. Malik McDowell had injury concerns, but he could work out. You addressed some of the offensive line, which, again, this wasn't an offensive line heavy draft. I like the Delano Hill pick. Nazir Jones could be pretty good, and Tedrick Thompson going in the 4th round. That's a steal right there. So, Seahawks did pretty good for themselves. I think the real winners here are Arizona and ultimately the San Francisco 49ers. Hassan Reddick is going to be a beast. Buda Baker, That was a surprising pick there because they traded up for him, but can't go wrong with that pick. Dorian Johnson's going to be pretty good. And then you get to the 49ers taking Solomon Thomas and Reuben Foster. Reuben Foster could be one of those steals of the draft that people aren't, people are all raving about now. But I think definitely he's going to be somebody you're really talking about. The Joe Williams pick, I like that. Just some solid decisions by San Francisco. So for me, it's the 49ers with an A. The Cardinals right behind them with a B+. The Seahawks got a B. And the Rams get a C- for me.
Yeah, I think you're pretty close on, and I think the 49ers desperately needed a draft like this, and to really bolster their team back up and to add some depth, and I think they really accomplished that here, and in tremendous fashion. So you got to give them props. And Arizona, man, it's scary, but I mean, they just got better at the draft, and they were already pretty good.
No, I'm right there with you guys. I think San Francisco was the best in the division, and I liked that they focus on their defense. What happens? What do you do when you need so many weapons and so many things on your team? Go ahead and focus on the defense. Try to solidify that so at least the score can remain close, and then you can work on the offense to work that way. So I liked what they did. I think Arizona and Seattle were fine. Seattle got a ton of picks. They did a much better job than the Jets as they kept trading down, but they kept trading down to get valuable picks. The Jets wanted a bunch of 6th-rounders, while Seattle really bolstered up that 3rd-round pick, which has seemed to be a great round for them. So good work by them. I think all of them are B's, and A for the 49ers, of course. And then with the Rams, it wasn't sexy. I'm with you. I love Cooper Kupp. I've seen a few of his games at Eastern Washington. But other than that, nothing to write home about. So I would agree in the C range for them.
All right, so the final division we have to go through is the NFC South. I'll go ahead and, how about this? Randy and Gary, split it up. Give me the 1 and the 4, Randy, and give me the 2 and the 3, Gary. So, Randy, who do you have as your number 1 for the South here?
It's tough. Again, this is another division that I think is pretty close. I'm going to give it to New Orleans as the top team in this division. I liked Marcus Lattimore going there at number 11. What's the one thing we've always talked about the Saints? Their defense hasn't been that great. So they get him. They get Marcus Williams, the safety out of Utah, in the 2nd round to really go there. And everything else is just kind of positional pieces, get another offensive lineman at the end of the 1st round to help with Drew Brees. You already have the weapons there, and Drew Brees can make name the last time we've had any amazing wide receivers or running backs in New Orleans other than names that Drew Brees has created. Obviously, they got a big haul for Brandon Cooks. So I think them focusing on the defense was what they needed to do. And, I know a lot of people are going to say Carolina probably won this division, but I'm not a big fan of some of their moves. I don't think they're the right fit for that team. So the Saints, to me, won this division.
So who do you have in last?
Last to me, you got to go with the Falcons. Not that they did a terrible job. They just didn't have a lot. I mean, you had 3 rounds in the 5th round, but other than that, just 3 other picks. Takaris McKinley, not the sexiest pick out there, but when you're Atlanta and you have a solid team, you're not going to go out there and have an amazing draft. Again, it's a B-, C+ for me for Atlanta. Just not a ton of picks, and I think the other teams kind of filled some more needs. So Atlanta to me is the bottom, but by no means did they have a bad draft.
All right, Gary, what are your 2 and 3? Randy says it's New Orleans the winner. Do you agree and now you put the Panthers second, or you think the Panthers winning?
I'm a little bit on the opposite end. I think the Panthers did a pretty darn good job in their draft. And, maybe it's personal preference. I look at them and say to myself, really, honestly, Christian McCaffrey was a big pick, I think, for them because of the fact that he gives that running game a change of pace. And I think it also adds some excitement to that offense. And really, if they can get their self back to what they once were, they could, be a really devastating team with Christian McCaffrey. Plus, throw in a guy like this Samuel kid, at receiver. He could do some damage as well. So I look at them to really be a tough, force to be reckoned with when it comes to them. Plus, I also look at this, and they added another guy that I kind of like, and that's Deshaun Hall, a defensive end. And they got him over in the third round. And so, I really appreciate the fact that they did that, plus picking up themselves an offensive lineman in the second. So, they have done their best to kind of add some depth there. I really like it. And I think New Orleans did a good job, too. No hate towards New Orleans at all. I think that they were very meticulous, made some great decisions because they really needed some help on defense. And that's kind of where they went, too. They kind of focused on getting their secondary in order a little bit, grabbing them some offensive linemen, really kind of jumping around and picking the best of what they could to really solidify themselves. But I just got to do it. I got to go Carolina, then I'll go New Orleans. And then, of course, I know we just talked about the fact that, Atlanta probably was not the best, and they probably don't have to be, being the fact where they drafted. But Tampa Bay, made some good decisions themselves, but they're still number 3. I love O.J. Howard to death. But the rest of their, draft here is good, but it's not great.
Yeah, I really like the O.J. Howard pick for the Bucks. So they needed a tight end. Look, Cameron Braid's fine, but O.J. Howard's a total athlete. You need another guy there. You can definitely run those double tight end sets now. I like the Jeremy McNichols pick late in the 5th round. I don't know that he's going to be your... I think he's more of a Charles Sims than a Doug Martin, but we'll see. And definitely for me, I love the double McCaffrey-Samuel pick. That's a great haul for the Panthers, and then Taylor Moton too. The first 4 picks for the Panthers there, I got to agree with Gary as far as Panthers being first, then Saints, Bucks, and Falcons. But man, this division didn't do badly at all for themselves. So those are. Go ahead, Nelson.
Listen, you put McCaffrey and Samuel on any other team, I totally agree with you guys. You put them on Carolina, and I can't agree. You guys are going to say this is the perfect 2 guys that need to go on the Panthers until you see McCaffrey wide open 5 yards down the field, and Cam Newton throws it 50 yards down the field in double coverage. He wants to go deep. He doesn't want to dump it off to these guys. So I don't think they're going to be utilized like they could anywhere else. Again, if you just go off the paper and go, you got McCaffrey and Samuel both in the same draft, I'm going to agree with you guys. It's great. This is just not the team that they should have went to.
Yeah, but they could be used as running backs too. Remember, Jonathan Stewart doesn't play a full 16-game season.
But neither of them are run between the guards kind of running backs, and that's what you need because Cam Newton is going to be able to do everything else. Again, if you can teach Cam Newton about dumping the ball off and using them in the way that they should be used, Carolina is going to be the most dangerous offense in the league next year by far. It's just I don't know. We've seen Cam Newton for so many years, and he's had decent running backs that could do stuff like that. Nothing like a McCaffrey or Curtis Samuel at all. It would have been nice to see him with a Danny Woodhead type of player, but he's had some players with similar skills, and he just doesn't go to them. He wants to go deep, or he's going to run it himself as far as the passing game goes. And when it comes running, you need that bruiser, which is the complete counter of the deep passing game, and I don't see McCaffrey or Samuel doing that.
Yeah, and I understand that, and they really do like that bruiser for the most part. I think really my thought process on it is probably the diversion that they have now, because once it was okay, we got to keep Cam Newton in the box. We cannot let him get out. We got to make sure that he is not wiggling around where he likes to do to get to the outside, throw it deep. I think now the teams are going to have to really focus on that backfield more than they did in the past, and think, okay, well, it could be a toss. What could it be? Could we get a fake toss, and then we got to worry about Tim over here and McCaffrey on the left side? So I think it puts doubt in the defender's mind. It puts doubt in the defensive coordinator's mind every time these guys line up. And yeah, I mean, if Cam Newton plays to what you're saying and does not utilize these guys, well, heck, I mean, the league will be thrilled because those guys will be a waste.
Yeah, you're right about that. I mean, it's possible it could happen. How many times does somebody say, "Oh, this guy's gonna be a terrific player" or whatever, and then they don't pan out at all? So, but those are our grades. You can disagree, agree with them, whatever fits your fancy. There, let us know if you vehemently disagree or whether you completely agree with our picks. We have all have Twitter accounts at WTMSean, at Randy Isbelle, at WTM Gary. You can tweet one of us there, or you can just tweet the whole website at WTM Network, and we'll be able to pick it up there. Of course, you can also leave a comment on the podcast post there on the website, WTMNet.com, where it'll be a lot easier for all of us to see it there. But yeah, so let us know what your draft grades are. Who you think did the best? Who do you think did the worst? This is all just guesstimation here. We could be completely wrong. Just even in this year, you don't know. There's so much time that goes from now to July, August, when they start playing, when you're in training camp, when you start playing these preseason games, all that stuff. It's gonna be interesting season, and now it's gonna be more fun for us to try to figure out what the hell to talk about. Every week from now on. This was the last gimme week, I think. And until you get into where they start training camp and things start happening and all that stuff. So, well, hope you enjoyed it. I know it's an episode, a few days late, but we got it out here. If you like what you hear, you can hit subscribe on the Football to the Max feed on all your podcast catching places. Or you can, of course, just subscribe to the whole WTM Network, where you can only get this show. You get, the wrestling show, the video game show, the all the other things that are out there. Even arena football, guys. You like arena football? We have a podcast for that. So, definitely make sure you keep checking us out. We'll be back on the Friday edition of the show. And until then, I'll see you later, everybody.
The following podcast is a W2M Network original production. Visit W2Mnet.com for all of our other great podcasts, plus news, reviews, articles, and opinions from the worlds of wrestling, video games, football, and entertainment.